Tonight's talk really is about Kalyanamita. The teachers all get together at the beginning of the year and they're like, how are we going to approach the queer Dharma this year? Last year it was queer AF. This year it's like queering the Dharma. And one of my favorite topics and content, you'll hear me, if you hear me teach, I often ask the question, why are we practicing? Why do you practice? Why do you show up tonight? What do you bring to the cushion? What's your intention here? And many of us entered through the doorway of suffering. I mentioned a little bit about my story, but I know that a lot of us enter the Dharma in our practice through suffering and wanting to create better conditions for ourselves. And so as we approach the Dharma, there are these three Brahma Viharas, there are these three places or refuges that are offered by our practice. The first is I take refuge in the Buddha. Not necessarily the historical figure, but the Buddha nature that's within all of us. To cultivate kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and create conditions where those values can really shine through. And then we also say that we take refuge in the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, the teachings that are so meaningful, right? This, whether it's the teaching of the second arrow, which can really help us internalize and understand that suffering is natural, but there's suffering that leads to more suffering, there's suffering that leads to the end of suffering. And the teaching of the second arrow is a great story and practice around kind of how do we sometimes continue our suffering unintentionally. So the Dharma, or as a second refuge, you can take, we bring to our practice. And then the last is we take refuge in the Sangha and in our communities. And the reality and truth is that, some of us are quite happy in the refuge of the Buddha and the Dharma. That we can move in the world and we can read our books and we can even have a very strong individual practice. But in Sangha, there can be, so many lessons that you can't learn alone. And relationship to each other, both, dyads, triads, and groups. There are so many things that arise for us to look at, so many opportunities to bring our practice towards. And also tonight I've been really thinking about how do we queer the Dharma. I think about my spiritual queer friends. So many of us are required, and through different circumstances, to kind of create our own families. And that's how I think of my queer friends. I think of them as family. I've got my soul brother Marcus, I've got my play sister Hannah, not by blood, but definitely through queer attachment. Our queer identities are gifts to the world, right? The ways in which we move, the ways in which we exist is such a gift. We are all gifts. And there are places where my gifts haven't always been appreciated. And so I'm aware that I have created, often many of us do, queer friendships that actually are more substantive, more supportive, and sometimes more loving than my blood family is my queer family. And I think of them as my, queer Sangha. They're my family. They're my community. I was watching TikTok this morning. I know, not great, but it's happened sometimes. But Billy Porter was talking about, I don't know why they interviewed Billy Porter about political stuff, but Billy Porter was talking about the ways in which the right has this vitriol and this hate that they generate against queer people. And his perspective was that the hate was a reaction to a world that we've already created, right? That their violence and their wanting to limit and control and harm us as a queer community, comes as a reaction to the world that we've already started creating. He was reminding us, not to let their ignorance and their delusion confuse us, that there are loving communities and places, that we are fighting for our rights, and at the same time, don't get confused that our queerness is still a gift, it's still present. And for me, it just reminded me that, we can still connect with each other and do what we do, create conditions for our best selves and well-being. this really made me think towards gratitude, which is a deep part of the Dharma practice, right? Mindfully aware of the things that we're grateful for. Mindfully aware of, even in dark and turbulent and terrible times, our practice allows us to turn our attention to something we can be grateful for. It might be the breath, it may be a friendship, it may be just a chance to lay down or be still. But it actually is great refuge to find mindfully aware places where we can be grateful. When we're feeling grateful, it can shift our condition. So I'm going to ask folks, invite you, if you feel so inclined, just to take a moment and think about something that you're grateful for. Like to practice gratitude together. You might find, feel comfortable in your posture. You might just take a breath and get still for a moment and see what arises as something that you may be grateful for in this moment. And then with that gratitude in your heart and your mind, just be aware. Even just saying it to yourself, I'm grateful for I have gratitude for I'm mindfully aware and have gratitude for and as you let that kind of reverberate through the body, noticing if there are places where maybe a little bit of the mouth turns up at the corners, maybe you feel a little bit more grounded or centered, but actually turning our attention towards gratitude is a practice that can support us during difficult times. And with that gratitude, I also am aware of the relationship between gratitude and generosity. When I am in my most centered place and I am experiencing gratitude, it becomes very easy for me to become generous. Places where I'm not generous, places where I am quick to kind of shut down or not extend myself, those are places when I'm not really aware. I might be limited by, I feel challenged, I feel tired. Honestly, hunger is a big one for me. I can't be generous when I'm hungry. And so I think about how gratitude can set us up to be generous. Living in our gratitude, this practice that Akash is inviting us into around Dana for the center. It's really quite an incredible community to be a part of. So how do I align that? Like when I'm feeling grateful for this community, can that support my generosity to extend towards EBMC? So the invitation is just to consider the relationship and know that this practice of gratitude and of generosity, is deep in the Dharma. I love these practices. They make me feel very empowered. They make me feel like it's not reliant upon someone else to invite me to feel grateful, or it's not something that a challenging boss or colleague or a client can kind of shake me from. It's a practice that is very accessible to me at all times. I feel very powerful when I'm aware of my own gratitude and generosity. So I also want to name that there's this practices of queer people coming together. We've been doing this for generations. And when we come together, I find that we create this really special queer magic. And there's a wide variety of reasons that many of us kind of create these communities, but there are powerful lessons that maybe aren't always explicit. So I want to share from a woman named Kate Johnson, wrote a book called Radical Friendship. And in it, she talks a lot about the ways in which friendship can support. She reflects on the Metta Sutta, which is instruction for monks around how to practice and how to be in community. And I'll just read one paragraph and then from the Metta Sutta. First, Kate starts by saying, friendship is a kind of power that does not rely on existing systems of privilege. In this world, it qualifies friendships as both spiritual practice and superpower. The essential difference is this: to become an ally is to take on an identity. To become a friend is to commit to a path of practice. Friendship is not an identity, it is an activity. Friends feed each other, check on each other, cheer each other up, and let each other be. We help when help is needed and wanted. We do our very best to protect each other from harm. We support each other in accountability. And when we fail to live up to our values and agreements, we begin again. Friendship is something we practice not because we should, but because we want to. Because it restores our access to our full humanity. Because it makes life beautiful and meaningful and divine. This is my experience of queer family. This is my experience of queer Dharma. Queer Sangha. The ways in which we extend towards each other, and we can be imperfectly perfect to support. And then she quotes from the Metta Sutta, talking about friendship as freedom. The sutta says, "Monks, a friend endowed with 7 qualities is worth associating with." Which 7? They give what is hard to give. They do what is hard to do. They endure what is hard to endure. They reveal their secrets to you. They keep your secrets. When misfortune strikes, they don't abandon you. And when you're down and out, they don't look down on you. And a friend endowed with these 7 qualities is worth associating with. This passage comes from a longer body of the Buddhist teachings called Anguttara Nikaya Sutta. So I love that. I love naming the giving what's hard to give, doing what's hard to do, because friendships aren't always easy, but in those practices and in that relationship, I find deep refuge. So I turn it to you, and I'm asking kind of like broadly, but what are the qualities that you would say show up in your friendship? You know, what are you most looking for? What are the things that are easy for you to give? And even how have those practices really those friendships supported your practice? I want to read one more thing. And this is from The Heart of the Buddha's Teachings by Thich Nhat Hanh. In the chapter around the paramis, he's talking about the greatest gift we can offer anyone is our true presence. As a young boy I know was asked by his father, "What would you like for your birthday?" The boy hesitated, and the father was wealthy, could give him anything he wanted, but the father spent so much time making money that he was rarely at home. So the boy said, "Daddy, I want you." This message was clear. If you love someone, you have to produce your true presence for him or her. When you give that gift, you receive at the same time a gift of joy. Learn how to produce your true presence by practicing meditation, breathing mindfully and bringing body and mind together. "Darling, I am here for you" is the mantra you can say when you practice the paramis. Darling, I am here for you. Yeah, so I'm pointing towards this, well-documented fact within the Dharma that we can be engaging with each other. We can be these loving friends that are caring for each other in a particular way. And the language that is often used is Kalyana Mitta, like a friend on the spiritual journey together. It's so helpful to have these people when we're in our practices. If I am relating to a friend who I know is also on their journey, and I can talk about, the challenges of wise speech, or the challenges of, showing up with my best self. I don't know how to tap into my beautiful nature. I get angry all the time. It's easy to have those conversations with folks who are also on the journey. And so I just point towards the ways in which we as queer people are invited to share our beautiful identities with each other, and find this companionship, this partnership, this friendship. May we all be so lucky to find our queer family and enjoy these aspects of the friendships. Um, and I'm inviting these 3 prompts that I will drop into the chat. What qualities would your friends say that you offer in friendship? Was the first. The second is, what qualities do you look for most in friendship? And the third is, how have your friendships been supportive of your practice? I just dropped them in the chat. And so you may choose to answer those prompts with each other, but also if something else is alive, please let that lead you. The alternative is to stay in the main room, and we will, for 10 minutes, be talking about the metta practice and how we might create metta phrases that are unique to ourselves. So this practice of metta is meant as a to offer us both the benefit of like sharing our well intentions with people, and also there's an effect for ourselves as we offer. So as we offer people the prayers of, may you feel joy and ease, may you feel strong, healthy, and protected, may you feel free, the traditional practice is to begin with the benefactor, but then also to offer these same prayers to the unknown person. Maybe the person that, was in the toll booth, or the person that stood next to you on the bus, someone whose name you don't know, but you offer it to an unknown person, and you start to cultivate this feeling of well-wishing. And then eventually you work towards being able to offer this metta, this loving kindness, even to a difficult person. We tend not to start with like the most difficult person, but like someone that maybe you once were close with and, fell apart, and it may not be easy to think of offering them well wishes, but that's the point. The more we practice and get in the method of offering loving kindness, it just starts to radiate, and you start to be able to access it more quickly. Eventually you end up in this practice offering loving kindness to all beings in every direction, and you just become this kind of like beacon. You like emanate this energy, and the process of wishing well to my benefactor, to the unknown person, to the difficult person, to myself, and then to all beings in every direction, it builds this muscle of just loving kindness, and it really can shift the way that we think and relate to each other. I've had the direct experience of offering loving kindness to a difficult person, who I'm not in contact with, and after, a certain number of months of doing this practice, I found myself a little bit loosened, a little bit holding that, resentment or frustration a little less tightly, and it really can transform. So one thing that is really helpful in metta is to use phrases that are really resonant for you, right? So there are traditional phrases of, may you feel joy, may you experience ease, but that might not be the language that you're most comfortable with, right? And the thing that really transmits is when you hit the word or the language that really resonates in your spirit. You might even feel it somatically or like energetically in your body. I used to think one of my metta phrases in the past was, may you laugh out loud. And in that moment, I would think of a person, see, look, Akosa's laughing. I would think of a person laughing, and that just like my heart would crack open. I'd be like, oh, right. That's what my mom looks like when she laughs. Oh, right. That person that I have a difficult relationship with, I remember when it wasn't so difficult and what she looked like when she laughed. And it would just open. So I'm going to plant a seed here and ask you to start thinking about what language, what words really resonate for you. You don't have to say joy and ease. You might say laughter and fun. May you experience, choose your own words. The next set of phrases, may you feel healthy, safe, and protected. These are words that really resonate with me. And so I ask you to kind of think about, are there other words that you might switch out for healthy? Can you switch out for safe or protected? Are there other words that would connote a similar feeling, but that feel much more alive in your body? I don't know if you would ever say to your friends like, oh, I hope you're safe. You might not. You might say like, I hope that you're strong, or I hope that you are resilient, or I hope that you're powerful, or I want you to feel resilient. So just start thinking of words that might resonate for you around safety, health, and protection. And then the last kind of phrases are meant to be kind of a launching pad, right? So that you want to land and end with this, may all beings be free. But that may not resonate for you. May all beings be home. May all beings experience groundedness. May all beings experience satisfaction. So just turning over in your head, because what you're really looking for are words that resonate for you and that can transmit. Because when you're sitting in practice and you say, may I feel joy and ease, may I feel healthy, safe and protected, may I feel strong, may I feel free. Like you want it to really resonate with you. So I'm going to give us some time to think about those phrases, but I'm going to treat you to a little song. I was with Sharon Salzberg once and she was teaching metta, as she often does, and she invited us to think about the phrases that we wanted and then to put it to a little ditty. So you might think of your phrases and turn it to happy birthday. May you feel joy, may you feel at least. That's not my song, hold on. But there's a song that I love from the children's choir I was in when I was a child. It's this threefold benediction. It's this beautiful piece that's in Hebrew, but the melody always stuck with me, and so I sing my metta to the melody of the threefold benediction. It goes like this. May you feel joy and ease. May you be safe. May you feel healthy and strong. And may we all be free. Isn't that nice? Nice. So I'm going to give you just a couple minutes if you jot down or just think about what words really make your heart expand. Imagine wanting to send the best of wishes to your best friend and benefactor, to someone you love wholeheartedly. It's very easy to love them. What words would really bring your presence to this practice of wishing well? So just take 2 minutes. Notice to yourself what words arise as you're thinking of well-wishing your best person. Yeah, I really invite folks to play with this and not feel restrained by kind of the classic phrases, like finding ways to language the Dharma, metta for yourself that are really alive. It's a great practice. And then if you feel like that's really fun, you might also add it to a little ditty. So, people are showing up and kind of laughing. It's fine. It's fun. I'm glad that metta is such a deep part of my practice and is great for turbulent times, offering kindness to ourselves and others. And sometimes, I had another piece of my talk I was going to deliver that was really around being spiritual friends with yourself, because so many of us struggle around kind of extending towards friends or making friends, and then the metta practice is difficult to offer to ourselves sometimes. Can I feel joy? Can I feel ease? It doesn't always sit well with me. I know that's a shared experience. And so I'll tell you what my teacher Larry Yang says, which is like, if you can't offer yourself the metta of loving kindness, can you intend to wish yourself well at a future date? So you kind of like walk it back, like, may I eventually be able to wish myself loving kindness? May I eventually feel joy and ease? And then if that even feels hard, you can say, may I eventually get to the point where I can think of offering myself joy and ease? So you just kind of chop it up and walk it back, and like until it comes. No pressure, but just like, especially around the offering metta to a difficult person. Oftentimes when I give that instruction, people are I always say, like, don't choose the most difficult person, but there's complexities, layers. And so with that practice is like, ooh, I had this president child and I could not offer him loving kindness. I could not get there. But I could say, I feel like I know the power of metta, and eventually may I get into a position where I can see my way towards offering. I also had this, do you know that sensation when you've been like working really hard and it's maybe summertime and you're a little sweaty and you get that drink of cool water for the first time and you're like, that was a feeling that I tried to capture in my metta phrases years ago. It's like, may you feel the satisfaction of a cool drink on a warm day, and offering that as love and kindness towards people. It's helpful.